I had officially given up on love the day I met Donald. It was a cold, gray afternoon in late October. The sky hung low with heavy clouds, and the rain hadn't stopped since morning. I remember sitting alone in that little cafe on Elm Street, the one tucked between the bookstore and the flower shop. The windows were fogged, the lights dim. I was nursing a cup of lukewarm coffee and scribbling into my journal words I didn't really want to feel. Some hearts aren't meant to be held. Maybe mine is one of them. The truth is, I was tired. Tired of opening up only to be disappointed. Tired of trying to be enough for people who only saw me as temporary. I had reached a quiet kind of numbness. The kind where you stop hoping, not because you're angry, but because hope had become too heavy. Then he walked in. I didn't notice him at first. The bell above the cafe door rang like it always did, but I was too busy pretending to read. It wasn't until the waitress called out, "Hey, you're back from base?" that I looked up. He was tall, clean-cut, dressed in a deep green jacket with a faded patch on the shoulder. His boots were muddy. His eyes were the first thing that softened me. They were calm, steady, like someone who had seen chaos and chose gentleness anyway. He ordered tea, not coffee, tea, then glanced around for a place to sit. The cafe was nearly empty, but for some reason he walked over to the seat across from me. "Mind if I sit here?" he asked. His voice was low and smooth, with a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. I hesitated. I wasn't in the mood for conversation, but something in the way he asked, no pressure, just presence, made me nod. We sat in silence for a moment. I went back to my journal. He quietly sipped his tea. I could feel his eyes glance at the words I had just written. I shifted, a little uncomfortable. "You write?" he said. I nodded. "Sort of, mostly to get things out of my head." He smiled, that kind of half-smile people make when they understand something too well. "I write too," he said. "Letters, mostly ones I never send." That caught my attention. "Letters to who?" I asked. "To people I miss," he replied. Then, after a pause, "to the man I'm trying to be." I looked at him fully then. Not just the uniform or the soft jawline, but the ache behind his eyes. He wasn't flirting. He wasn't trying to impress me. He was just there. Present. Honest. "I'm Paige," I said. "Donald," he said with a smile. We talked for over an hour. About books, about how he missed real food when he was on base, about how rain made him feel human again after dry months in desert camps. I found myself laughing. Not out of politeness, but because something in him made me feel safe. It wasn't butterflies, it wasn't fireworks, it was something quieter, something softer. When I stood to leave, he didn't ask for my number. He just said, "If you ever feel like talking again, I'm around. Same tea, same jacket." I walked out into the drizzle with a strange warmth blooming in my chest. I didn't believe in signs anymore. But something about that afternoon felt like the start of something I didn't know I needed. I had given up on love, and somehow love found me anyway. Falling in love with Donald wasn't like lightning. It was more like sunrise, slow, steady, and impossible to ignore once it had touched everything. After that rainy afternoon in the cafe, I kept thinking about him. I told myself it was nothing, just a conversation. Just a man with kind eyes and a gentle voice. But a week later, I found myself back at that same cafe, my journal open but untouched, and there he was. Same tea, same jacket, same smile. We didn't make plans to see each other, we just kept showing up. And over time, something beautiful happened. He didn't rush me. He didn't try to fix my broken places. He simply made space for them. For me. I remember the first time he held my hand. We were walking back from a late dinner, Indian food, my favorite. He reached out so naturally, his fingers brushing mine like he'd always known how to hold them. When our palms met, I felt my walls tremble. Not crash, just tremble. "This okay?" he asked quietly. I nodded. I think my heart did too. We were together for 2 years, but those years felt like a lifetime stitched into seconds. He taught me what it meant to feel safe, really safe, in someone's love. There were long walks at sunset, mornings where I'd wake to the smell of coffee and his voice humming in the kitchen. Sundays we spent reading on the couch, my legs draped over his fingers absent-mindedly tracing circles on my ankle. He wasn't a loud man, but he was always present. He left me notes, not just on birthdays or holidays, on regular days. I'd open my bag and find a folded piece of paper that read, "In case the world forgets how amazing you are today, I wanted you to remember." He bought me a leather-bound journal for our first anniversary, my name engraved on the front in gold. "For the thoughts too beautiful to be kept inside," he said, pressing a kiss to my forehead. I never told him this, but sometimes I wrote about him in it. Little moments, phrases he said, the way he looked when he was deep in thought. It felt like I was documenting a miracle. I couldn't quite believe I had been given. Before we continue, may I ask where you're tuning in from? Your support from around the world gives me so much strength. Please share in the comments. Now back to the story. Donald was a soldier, yes, but with me he was something else entirely. He was the man who walked on the side closest to the road, who always made sure I got home safe, who stood behind me in crowded places like a quiet shield. But he was also the man who watched rom-coms with me and never complained, who danced with me in the kitchen to music from my childhood, who once drove across town just to bring me a slice of strawberry cake on a day I didn't even know I needed cheering up. His love was protective, but it was never possessive. It was soft, but never unsure. It was the kind of love that doesn't ask for proof, only presence. It was a Sunday morning. The sunlight had spilled across our bedroom, and I remember tracing lazy circles on his chest while he told me. "I leave in 3 weeks," he said. I froze. He pulled me closer, pressed a kiss to my temple. "I'll come back, Paige, I promise." I tried to smile. I tried not to let fear swallow the moment. But inside, something cracked. We still had time, but it suddenly felt too short, and so we spent those final weeks soaking in every second. He took me to that beach I'd always wanted to see. We cooked together, slow and messy, like it was sacred. Every night, I fell asleep with my head on his chest, counting his heartbeats like they were prayers. There's a silence that doesn't live in sound. It lives in your chest. I felt it the day Donald left. The morning of his deployment was bright, almost cruelly so. The sun spilled into our apartment like it didn't know we were saying goodbye. I watched it dance across his packed duffel bag, the zippers and fabric edges catching gold in the light. I had folded every piece of clothing myself, memorizing each one like a prayer. We didn't talk much that morning. We moved slowly, carefully. I made him breakfast, even though neither of us could eat. He sat at the kitchen table in his uniform, his dog tags resting against the dark green of his shirt. He looked like someone who belonged to another world, like someone already halfway gone. He caught me staring and smiled, a quiet, tired smile. "Hey," he said gently, "don't look at me like that." "Like what?" I asked, my voice too thin. "Like I'm leaving forever," he said, smiling. I dropped my gaze and blinked hard. He stood, walked over, and wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. "You know I'll come back to you, always," he whispered. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. The ride to the base was quiet, but our fingers never let go of each other. He played our song through the speakers, "The Night We Met." And I pressed my forehead to the window, willing the world to stop turning. At the gate, we weren't allowed to go farther. Just like that, time caught up with us. He turned to me, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. like he always did. "I don't know how to say goodbye to you," I said. He didn't answer right away. His eyes searched mine like he was etching me into memory. "No matter where I am, your love is my home," he said softly. That's when I broke. I pressed my face against his chest, clinging to the rhythm of his heart like I could bottle it up, keep it with me somehow. "I love you," I whispered over and over again. "I love you." He placed his dog tags in my palm and closed my fingers around them. "Keep this close," he said. "It's a piece of me." And then with a last kiss that felt like a lifetime folded into a second, he was gone. Coming home without him felt like walking into a house someone had emptied. His jacket still hung by the door, his coffee mug sat in the sink. The scent of his cologne lingered faintly on the sheets. I made the bed, I put away the mug, I tried to fold away the ache like it was laundry. But that night, I lay on his side of the bed with his dog tags clutched in my hand, and I finally let the grief spill out of me. Every day that followed was a stretch of time marked by little rituals. I texted him every morning, even if he couldn't reply. I wore his hoodie around the house. I played our favorite songs just to keep his voice in my mind. And every time the phone buzzed or the mail arrived, I hoped for his name. 2 weeks after he left, I got my first letter. It read, "Paige, the stars here are different. Not better, not worse, just lonelier. I sleep with your voice in my head, that smile of yours, it's what keeps me standing. I'll come back to you." And I believed him, because I had to, I needed to. What I didn't know then was that love doesn't just survive across distance, it grows. But so does fear, and just beneath my skin something else was growing too. A secret, a heartbeat. I hadn't heard from him in days. At first, I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe the mission was tougher than usual. Maybe he was in a place where the signal didn't reach. He had warned me this could happen. But after the third day of silence, something in me began to crack. I kept calling, over and over, hoping to hear his voice. The first time I called after our last conversation, his phone rang once, just once. Then the line cut off. It wasn't like him to not return a call, even if he was busy. He always found a way to send a message, to let me know he was okay. But this time, there was nothing. I called again and again and again, but each time, it went straight to voicemail. I didn't want to think the worst. I couldn't. I refused to believe that something had happened to him. Not yet, not until I heard otherwise. Maybe the connection was just bad, maybe his phone was lost or broken. Whatever it was, I clung to the belief that he was out there, doing what he had to do, and that he'd be back to me. It had been over a month since Donald left with just one later to hold on to. A strange wave of nausea hit me that morning that made me wonder if something was off. At first, I shrugged it off. Maybe I hadn't eaten enough. Or maybe I was just tired from missing him, from the constant waiting. But then it happened again the next day, and the next. Something inside me told me I needed to know for sure. So I went to the pharmacy after work, my hands trembling as I picked up the test. I didn't even question it. Something in me knew, I just had to confirm it. Back at home, alone in the quiet, I took the test. I stared at it, my heart pounding in my chest as though the world was holding its breath along with me. And there it was, 2 lines. The world tilted under my feet. I didn't know what to feel. The shock hit first, but then a warm rush flooded through me. Relief, joy, fear, all of it. I was pregnant, our baby was real. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept one hand over my stomach, though there was no bump yet. Just the quiet, growing knowledge that something life-changing had begun. I needed to tell him. He needed to know. I grabbed a blank sheet of paper and began to write. "Donald, I don't know how to tell you this. I don't even know what words to use. But there's a heartbeat inside me. Yours and mine together. A piece of you is growing inside me, and he or she will know everything about you, how strong you are, how gentle, how you held me when I was breaking, how you loved me like I was the safest place in the world, like home. I hope you feel it, wherever you are, because I do. I feel you in every part of this. You're gonna be a father, Donald. I folded the letter carefully and tucked it into the envelope with his last letter. I didn't know when or if he'd ever receive it, but I had to believe that somehow he'd feel it. That wherever he was, he'd know. Each night, I found myself whispering to him. I talked to him like he could hear me, even though I knew he couldn't. I told him about the baby, about how I had no idea what I was doing, but that somehow we would figure it out together. I talked about the little things, like how I'd already started picking out names, and how I imagined what our life would look like once he was home. It felt strange and comforting all at once, talking to him, knowing he couldn't answer but still feeling connected to him. I placed my hand on my belly every time I spoke, like somehow that would bring him closer. "You'll be a great father, Donald, I know it," I whispered into the stillness. "We're waiting for you." The days passed and still, no word from him. His phone stayed unreachable, and I couldn't help but feel the weight of the silence. But I refused to believe the worst. I couldn't. I kept holding on to the words he had said to me before he left. "I'll come back to you, always." I had to believe in that promise. I had to believe he was out there, somewhere, safe, and waiting for the moment when he could come home. I walked around the house with my hand resting on my stomach, feeling the life growing inside me. A new chapter was starting, even though I didn't know how it would unfold. But in my heart, I believed one thing. Donald was gonna be a father, and when he came home, we would build the life we'd always dreamed of. The days blurred together in a haze of waiting. I continued to call, day after day, each ring an agonizing reminder of his absence. The voicemail was always the same, his voice soft and warm, as he told me to leave a message. But no matter how many times I left one, he never called back. I didn't think he was dead. I couldn't, not yet. He was out there somewhere in the middle of something, just waiting for the right moment to call. I believed that with everything I had. I stared at the empty mailbox for what felt like an eternity. I used to rush to it each day, desperate for a piece of him, a word, anything. But nothing. The silence was louder than anything I had ever heard before. It was like the world had just stopped. I tried to convince myself that it was normal, that he was just too busy with missions, too far from civilization, that maybe he didn't have time to write. Maybe he was just focused on coming home to me. But deep down I knew something wasn't right. The weight of unanswered calls and empty letters began to take its toll on me. I couldn't tell anyone. I couldn't tell my friends or family the truth. They didn't understand. They couldn't see the flickering light of hope that I clung to. They couldn't see the love we had, the promise Donald had made to me. "I'll come back to you, always." I tried to be strong, to convince myself that everything would be fine. But the truth was, I was afraid. I was afraid that the silence wasn't just an absence of sound. It was the absence of him. And with that fear came a terrible, gnawing loneliness. It settled in my chest, heavy and cold. I tried to fill the emptiness with work, with distractions, with anything that might keep my mind from wandering too far. But nothing worked. Nothing could erase the quiet ache that had lodged itself in my heart. One evening, as I sat on the couch, curled up in the dark, I felt it, a flutter, a soft, tiny movement deep inside me, like the world was waking up again. "The baby," I gasped, placing my hand over my stomach, unsure if it was just my imagination. But no, there it was again, a gentle nudge, a tiny reminder that I wasn't alone in this. That we were both still here, still waiting for him. I whispered into the quiet room, "He's going to be so proud of you, little one. You're going to be everything he ever dreamed of." I closed my eyes, imagining the day when Donald would finally come home. I pictured him holding our baby, the smile on his face so full of love, so full of pride. It wasn't a question of if anymore. It was a question of when. But the waiting was tearing me apart. It was the middle of the night when the phone rang. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. But no. The screen lit up and the number was not familiar. My heart pounded in my chest as I answered, my voice shaky with the weight of all the hope I had stored up. Hello. My voice cracked, the word barely a whisper. The line was silent for a few moments before a voice barely audible crackled through the speaker. Paige, I'm so sorry. It wasn't his voice, but I knew who it was. The words that followed blurred together in my mind, too fast, too broken, too filled with sorrow. But I understood enough to know that I had been wrong. He wasn't coming home. I collapsed onto the floor, the phone slipping from my hand. I didn't want to hear the rest. I didn't want to know. The days after that call were a blur. The world seemed to have shifted on its axis, leaving me behind in a reality I couldn't understand. The baby moved more now, a constant reminder of the love that was growing inside me, and a reminder of the man who would never be here to see it. I knew that, no matter how long I had waited, I would never stop loving him. No matter how much time passed, his memory would live on in the child we created together. The funeral was a blur. The days leading up to it were filled with numbness, phone calls I didn't remember, faces I couldn't quite place. And even though the world around me continued on, I stood still in a sea of grief, waiting for something, anything, to make it feel real again. But nothing did. When the casket was lowered into the ground, I felt like the earth itself had swallowed a part of me. The weight of the finality hit me then. The truth that Donald wasn't coming back to me. It crushed me, but it also anchored me to the reality that the man I loved was gone, and I had to find a way to keep going. It wasn't just the loss of him that tore at my heart. It was the absence of our future, the quiet moments we'd never have, the life we would never get to share. All of it was taken, and there was nothing I could do but carry his memory and the child we created together. I couldn't bring myself to face the world outside. The apartment we had shared was now just an echo of what was lost. His clothes still hung in the closet. His books lined the shelves. The same books he used to read to me late at night. The scent of his cologne lingered on the pillows, a cruel reminder that he was gone. The night I went into labor, I didn't know what to expect. I had imagined it 100 times before, in dreams where Donald was by my side, holding my hand, telling me everything would be okay. But this wasn't one of those dreams. This was real. This was pain. This was me alone, with a growing life inside me that I would have to protect and raise on my own. But when I finally held him, our son small and perfect, I felt something shift inside me. The world had changed, and yet somehow it hadn't. There was love in this tiny human. There was a part of Donald in him, and as I held him close, I knew that the love we shared was not gone. It would never be gone. You named after him, I whispered to our son, tracing the curve of his tiny face. Donald. He would have been the best dad. I promise you'll know him. I'll make sure of it. And somehow, as I whispered the name into that quiet hospital room, it didn't feel like goodbye anymore. It felt like continuation. Like Donald had left behind more than memories. He had left behind purpose. I kissed our son's head and let the tears fall. They weren't just tears of grief anymore. They were tears of love, of gratitude, of something sacred and quiet that I couldn't explain. And that's when I knew. It was time to let go. Not of Donald, not of the love, but of the ache that had kept me frozen. It was time to say goodbye to the life we'd imagined and begin living the one I had now. It was time to move forward, for me, for our son. You were my shelter, my second chance. The man who showed me that love could be soft and safe again. I will miss you every day. I will carry you in every breath. But I won't stand still anymore. Our son is here, and in him I see everything you were, brave, kind, gentle. He is your echo, and through him you live on. Sometimes love ends not with a fight or betrayal, but with silence, with a loss we didn't choose, and when it does, the grief can feel unbearable. But even in heartbreak, love leaves something behind, a lesson, a memory, a child, or a legacy. Saying goodbye isn't letting go of love, it's learning to carry it differently. And in that there is hope, there is healing, there is a new beginning. Thank you so much for listening. I truly hope you enjoyed the story. If it touched your heart or made you smile, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon so you'll be the first to know when we post new content. Your support really means a lot to us. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.